Here's this one.
All right, this one here is about a scoper, about scopers, you know, and we always talk about scopes. I like a scope. I mean, who in here likes a scope?
I don't know what that is.
Raise your hand if you like
I like the quick scope.
oscilloscope is what I'm talking about. They make a U-scope that you can actually, for $100, you can put it on your wrist, almost like a watch, and it's just a single trace scope. And you can look at the scope pattern, you know, for right there on your arm. Pretty cool. Anyway, what we got here, this came in for a flash and mill and had an obvious loaded misfire, P303, P174, P0422. Now, who knows what a P0303 is?
Misfire on cylinder 3.
Right, that's it, you got it. Who knows what a P0174 is?
Oxygen.
That's an O2 sensor code, right?
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
And what's a P0422?
That is powertrain something, isn't it?
Please. Powertrain, of course, it's got a P on the beginning of it, duh. All right, so
Hold on, we get
Barrel's a barrel of fun, isn't he? Okay, PL422's got to do with catalyst efficiency. What's the 400 series codes? 400 series codes are auxiliary air codes, right? Okay, what's 700 series codes?
Huh?
Transmission codes,
Transmission.
right? Okay, what's 200 series codes? You remember?
I have a picture of that on my phone.
Fuel injection.
Fuel injection.
Yeah, all right. What's 300 is ignition or misfire, and then 500 series codes are VSS, idle speed control, and then 600 series codes are, you know, computer stuff. All right, I mean, so we picked up a new cylinder. They say, this is what he did. This is what he did. He freeze framed, got the freeze frame, they cleared the DTCs and drove to replicate. The freeze frame is the snapshot it takes when it stored the code. You can pull that up, see how fast they were going. Chrysler had on the DRB3 what they call a similar conditions window, where you could basically drive at the same speed, at the same temperature, going the same, and see if you could duplicate it going like that. Not surprising, picked up a new cylinder, turned into a PL302, which matched twice more. Both banks are plus 15%. What's LTFT? Long-term fuel trim, right? What's that mean? What's plus 15% long-term fuel trim mean?
It means it's putting, it's putting fuel in it because it's not
It's got a lean condition it's trying to correct for, as far as it knows. All right, so too late today to confirm. The coil and boot looked fine, and misfire stayed on number 2 when they were swapped. So they swapped coils, and the misfire stayed on number 2. Okay, that's what we got. All right, so we're checking primary ignition wave. You got an attenuator. What is an attenuator? What's the word attenuator mean? That means you're reducing the amplitude. You're making a signal not so strong. Because whenever you've got a 400-volt spike coming out of the coil, you don't want it screaming in there and punching your scope in the teeth, right? So it was doing everything. Ground, the blue wires go ground out here, and on the cop coil, on that one there, you know, you hooked up the one that's not the red ones, and typically, and you're also going to do a current clamp to this other one. If it's a cop coil, you're going to do a current clamp there. And you can actually do you can find out what the current wave. Now let's look right here, so what I got. Here's a normal primary pattern. This is the firing line, this is the spark line, these are the coil oscillations, which are the leftover energy, and the fuel has all been consumed at this point, and the resistance is increasing in there until the spark finally burns out. Usually your upkick will be a little higher than that on one that's really pronounced, like we like to teach with. But if you don't have any coil oscillations right here, then George, you're missing class! All right, right here we got the coil saturation is right over here. Okay, now let me get that go past. All right, now this is what we had. This is what we had on this Mazda 3 liter. I got, you know, it's one of the guys on one of my Facebook pages, you know, posted this. I thought it was cool stuff. This is what a normal one looks like, and this right here is the one that he had, and it was number 2 loaded misfiring. There's your coil current ramp, which looks fairly normal. And number 2, if you do an injector current ramp, which is it looks almost the same way, except on an injector current ramp, you can tell when the injector actually opens because it'll have a little hump right there, a little small hump right there. This one here won't have the hump, but the long and the short of it is whenever it goes up here, you notice how the current continues to climb until it switches off the field, and then this drops, and then you get your spark, and there's your spark line. And what's that spark line doing that looks different from this one?
It's not spiking.
It's going up. It's going up, 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 up. It's got a strong slant to it. Now, what do you think that would mean based on what I just told you about what that little hump means?
It's not enough fuel in
Bingo, it's lean. That's what it looked like to me. Old Mac Vanden Brink can look at a scope pattern like that and tell you if you got a lobe rounded off on your camshaft. He's sharp as a tack. I mean, that guy is about scope stuff. But anyway, number 2, and I don't no miss. See, this was what it looked like when it wasn't missing on that Mazda. And so we basically, so this is what we're dealing with. We're trying to figure out what's going on with that. All right, so raising the voltage through burn time. This is another technician that he says, definitely lean misfire. So we're clear on what you see. Initial spark kilovolt starts well, and as fuel depletes, spark kilovolt raises with increased resistance. Now, if it was going the other way, instead of rising, it would mean excessive fuel, typically. Of course, it can mean other things too, but that was his observation. Loss of fuel pressure or clogged injectors is typically what that's going to be, especially if you get it on all the cylinders. Sometimes you'll have the same condition on all cylinders, but only one of them is fire because you got a weak plug or something on that one. See what I'm saying? Or something going on like that. All right. Bad plug wire will look like that. Sometimes they'll have a real ragged thing all the way up here. I've seen it a bunch of times. This is kind of a normal one. And this is when we pulled on our Pico scope out here on a car. I don't remember what car it was, but anyway, I used it in this presentation right there. There's your another pattern. All right. Now, remember the spark happens at top dead center. Just before top dead center, not at top dead center. As the engine picks up speed, the fuel only burns at one speed, so it has to fire sooner if the engine is not loaded in order for the spark to get, energy to be delivered to that nitrogen to heat it up to push the piston back down. All right, firing cylinder compression stroke right here. That one right there is a misfiring cylinder. Notice how tall that one is and how short that one is. Typically, whatever goes this way won't go that way. And this spark line, see, this is when it first pops across the gap, and this is the whole time it's burning. And so you measure that time, that's millisecond duration of the spark, and this right here is the voltage of the spark, so there's voltage over time always. Once again, you got leftover energy right there. Your companion cylinder, there's not a lot of spark that's going to be delivered over there because there's no gas over there. There's a lot more resistance in that cylinder, so this one right here is going to be the one that's going to, show you your stuff. And there's your companion cylinder to this one. See? So just don't get, this right here would be like on coil pack ignition, but it's not on cop coil. Cop coil doesn't have, you're not looking at both of them at the same time on cop
I
coil.
want to call it that.
All right, here's more real world stuff. I'm saying what my conclusion on that other one was he had something that was blocking all of, occasionally if some farmer's been gassing up the vehicle out of his homemade fuel tank, he'll have a little fine rust that gets in there, and that rust is so fine it can go past the fuel filter and clog up the injectors. There's stuff like that sometimes that happens too. 2003 350Z manual transmission, 106,000 miles. Customer just bought the car off an individual with no pre-purchase inspection, very sketchy and limited information on service history, most of which was second-hand word of mouth. Customer concern was check engine light, no power, won't rev past 2,500 RPM, and heavy misfire. All right, you need to be thinking about that.
That's in limp mode, isn't it?
Huh?
Limp mode?
Limp
Power-
mode? What?
Power restrain mode?
Huh?
Power restrain mode or something.
Oh yeah, that's what you're talking about, like limp in mode or something like that. Upon arrival, faults were read out of the entire car. Lots of garbage and secondary systems about battery voltage, comms, all that. Ignored those codes at this point. Engine faults were stored. PO111, PO21, and PO11, PO21, PO00 345. Camshaft sensor circuit bank 2, intake valve timing, control performance bank 2, intake valve timing, control performance bank 1. All right. Now, if I can get that. So during the visual inspection, the timing cover had been off at new silicone. Things had been disassembled and shoddily put back together. We don't do that in here, do we? We always put everything back. Disassembled and not put back together good. Leaving brackets off, leaving bolt slips. Crappy job, right? Leaving stuff swinging. It should have been bolted back up. Bolts missing, different bolts used, links found loose, brackets missing, wire had been repaired, quote unquote. Looking at live data, bank 1 intake valve timing was at minus 14.5, bank 2 intake valve timing was at minus 18.5. Locked at idle with vehicle warmed up. Now remember, this has got variable valve timing, right? You got it? Vehicle did run as described, 2,500 RPM max, misfire, no power. Wouldn't hardly go, right? All right, located a few good known cam crank position correlation waveforms for the engine from fellow techs online. And this, all of these Nissan engines that are, they're V6s, a lot of them will have pretty much the same waveform if they're in the same year model. went ahead and scoped both cam position sensors and the crank sensor to verify signals, as well as possibly getting a standing on engine timing. Alright, so here, both banks were retarded, as best you could tell, based on the waveform, but the signal from bank 1 cam position was garbage and sporadically hung at 5 volts for extended time frames, odd because the ECM had identified issue with bank 2 cam position. And that was his scope pattern right there. His scope pattern, he was getting this, the pattern that he was supposed to see was what was down here. The pattern he was actually seeing was up here, and it was, see, it's all screwed up. They got these big, tall, you know, for a long time, that's what he was talking about, logging at 5 volts and all. It's just a messed up thing. I have actually seen one where these were out of line, you'd swear it was out of time, and all it was a sensor on these Nissans, on Altimas and stuff. So it's always good to put a sensor in there first, before you go deeper. So anyhow. Alright, so after cam position bank 1 replacement, both cam position signals were clean and in direct copies of each other, but waveform then showed in fact both banks were retarded by about 16.6 degrees. If both banks are retarded, what are you thinking? What does that mean exactly? That means the valves are open and late. That means the crankshaft is probably running in front of the camshafts, running ahead of them, right? Okay. Huh? Alright, so you're thinking in the right direction, okay? You know, he got a little noise up here, but the long and the short of it is, everything was lined up like it was supposed to be. But after he did that, now it wouldn't start. And all he did was replace the cam sensor. Nissans are weird, because if you've got a V Nissan, a V6 Nissan, you can have one bad cam sensor that will start hard. If you've got if you unplug the cam sensor, like on an Altima, like a 4-cylinder Altima or something like that, it may start, it may not. See what I'm saying? So you can't say, well, I'm having trouble here, so I'll just unplug the cam sensor. If it fires up, you can't leave it unplugged, because the next time it may not start. That's the way those darn things are. It's real peculiar. But a hard start can be because of one bad cam sensor. We had one out here we had to replace the starter on. It was spinning and starting, and it probably wiped out the starter because he was having to spin it too long before he started every time. Alright, so this worked out mathematically. Bank 1, 14 and had, 18, blah, blah, and all that. So he basically was doing the math on this, And he had perfect cam and crank position signal. So he said, why the heck did I have a no start? Alright, so what he did was, once the timing cover was removed, he found a brand new water pump. And by some miracle, the timing chain had gone, who knows how many revolutions, and then have the colored links match back up on the camshaft marks. What he's talking about is the colored links that line up on those things. Do they line up every time they come around? All these long timing chains? Heck no. They walk. And if you turn that thing through and they happen to line up on the marks, I mean, they're going to line up on the marks ever so often. I don't know how many times it'll be. But it's real aggravating because you have to turn it through a lot of times before they walk up. But when he pulled it off, it just so happened the suckers were lined up on the camshaft. And, alright, 1 in a million plus. This is what he saw. See the mark? You got a mark there and a colored link, mark there and a colored link. It just happened to land so he was able to look at those. Now this is actually going from one camshaft to the other. He took a picture of one and then the other, but these are all the same chains going over there, but in order to fit them all in the same thing. But this is what he found when he looked down there. See how that mark was off a tooth? That means if it's turning this way, the crankshaft is ahead of the camshaft, and that's why we were having the whole problem with that. So we had to put all that back in time. You got it? Well, this is question 1. You got your paper? Got an answer sheet? Don't say it. Oh crap, bad word. All right. What will this line do if you stretch the spark on this spark plug? If I take that spark plug and I pull it off, you know how you pull it off and it starts popping? That's something I told Noah yesterday. If you pull a spark, if you stretch the spark on an engine that's misfiring and it starts hitting, what does that mean?
Start hitting?
It means the plug's, yeah, if it starts firing when you stretch the spark, it means the plug's fouled. That's what that means. I learned that when I was 16 years old. All right. What will this line do if you stretch the spark on this spark plug?
It'll go higher.
All right. So you said that will go higher, right? Is that what you're saying? Okay. If you think that's the right answer, put it down. But we will grade this with the strictest enforcement of the right answers. Jordan missed the whole first most interesting part of the presentation.
No.
does this upkick in the spark line mean? Now, if your eyes were glazed over and you weren't paying attention when I was talking about that, you will have no idea what to put down on that line. Don't you just love fill in the blank? If you had A, B, C, and D, you could just guess at one, and you might even guess your way to a passing grade, right? Fill in the blank tests are the wave of the future.
If you can read my handwriting, so.
I can read your handwriting. I've been reading your handwriting for 2 years, okay? All right. What does upkick mean? All right, let's move on. What do these squiggles mean?
Okay, I zoned out on that part. I know the other two was, but that one I zoned out.
Yeah, you were playing with your phone while ago. Did you text your girlfriend or something? Would you like to share that with the rest of us, or whatever?
Yeah,
Oh,
she called me middle class.
Yep.
It's funny.
Remember, now, everybody needs one of these, ELM 327 for $7.95 on Amazon. It hooks up to your phone, and you can actually use your phone for a scan tool. I don't want to throw it over, it may bounce off of something and not work anymore.
I might keep it from you.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right, question 4. What is this pattern?
What am I looking at?
This pattern here.
Oh,
You see the blue arrow?
I saw
That's
A down
usually-
there. So I was like,
Don't worry
maybe
about A,
it's
don't
something
worry
about
about the blue arrow. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have put that A down there. I should have got rid of the A. My bad.
Maybe.
If
I'm
you
gonna
don't
go out
know,
on
if
a
you don't
limb
know,
here and
shame
say
on
it's
you.
about fuel.
What?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say it's about fuel.
We'll see about that. What is this pattern?
Okay, am I looking at the bottom one now?
Bottom one now.
Okay.
You've seen this before. I've showed you this before.
Unless I got them backwards.
What's this pattern? Taylor just yawned while looking at this pattern. Did you notice that?
That one I yawned.
Now this is a pattern, that's this pattern the way it's supposed to look. Now I'm gonna show you one that we measured out here and what we got. That's the one we measured that wasn't right. It was the same kind of vehicle, but it wasn't right.
Hold up, I'm on.
See?
I'm on number 4.
How are you still on number 4? We are on 7 now.
What's number 3 then?
Huh?
I'm on.
What do the squiggles mean?
Okay, yeah, I got over that one.
All right, you see that? See how they're different?
Yes.
And I'm talking about the placement of those, all right? What 2 things were measured to gather this information? Now, believe it or not, this is compression. 160 PSI, 147, 142, 160. And these right here only have 1.6, almost no PSI at all.
You got some bad rings there.
I know, but how did we gather this data? That's what I'm asking. See that? This right here was the raw data. This was how it was interpreted by the computer, by the program, by the software, by the algorithm, by the machine.
The computer does it, that's all I can tell you. I don't know what the formula is, so.
I know, but what 2 things did I hook up in order to get this?
A pressure gauge and
No, I did not hook up a compression gauge at all. That's the beauty of this. It doesn't take very long to get this piece of data, unless you're a second-rate amateur. You're about to learn the answer when you fail this test, okay?
Alright.
What is a waste spark system? It's a yawner, isn't it?
I can tell you more better than I can write it down.
You got it?
I can tell you better than I can write it down.
What's the difference between closed-loop fuel control and open-loop fuel control? Shame on you if you don't know the answer to this. I see 2 girls exchanging notes over there. Okay.
I ain't even got no money.
What system is this?
I don't know, I'm going out on a limb here saying that's for the spark.
A flooded spark. Maybe it's a heated hydrocarbon event. That's a bogus answer I used to put on some of my tests. Which vehicle has a heated hydrocarbon vent? You say, huh? Because there ain't no such thing, right? All right, let's back up. Let's do this quick, because we gotta go. Come on. All right, what will that do? That line will get taller. Now, what happens to this line when this one gets taller? This one gets shorter.
Yeah.
Imagine like you had a little nail right here and you had a piece of string. When that goes taller, that goes narrower. If you're a race car person, like Nick over there, what you're gonna do, in order to make your, if you're tacking up to 12,000 RPM, you're gonna be gapping your spark plugs really close. But you want this to be long. You want this to go on for a long time. You want that table to be long.
I ain't changed my spark plugs out, but I hit about 6 grand.
Yeah. Take a read, amateur. All right. This upkick means what? Tell me.
Loss of fuel pressure, clogged injector.
You know, you've used up your fuel. That means that on a normal system, as that fuel is used up, you got the resistance increases, the spark burns out. When the spark burns out because the fuel's been used up, then these squiggles mean there's leftover coil energy that could have been used to burn more fuel if it was in there. So that means you got a good strong coil when you got that leftover spark energy. If you see just a dip down here and no leftover coil energy, it means you got a weak ignition coil or something's going on, you know, it's drinking some of your juice. Like if you hook a Tesla at the primary side of the coil, you'll suddenly see that the squiggle go away on the.
I got a red line about 7,000.
Sure, that sounds like an Elvis Presley movie. Okay. Question 4. What is this pattern? This is a multi-strike ignition system in a Crown Victoria. Whenever you hook that thing up, if you notice the Escort and the Crown Victoria pops the spark plug 3 times every time it fires it when it's idling. It goes bap, bap, bap. And I'm telling you, if you got your hand anywhere near that thing and it reaches out and touches you, you will know that. But it will knock you on your fanny. But if you crack it off of idle, it goes back to 1 spark. So that is an idling vehicle with multi-strike, unless you got MDS ignition, which Nick's got on his race cars over there. And it actually doesn't trigger the ground side, it triggers the hot side on MDS ignition, the one that I fooled with. So, I'm not much of a race car nut anyway, but I know a little bit about what's going on there. What's this pattern?
Injector pulse.
That's injector pulse. Very good. There's your 12 volts, it pulls it down. This is how long the injector's open whenever it releases it.
I told you how to-
Magnetism sweeps across those windings, you get about a 50-volt spike right there. That's what that deal is. All right, what's this
Cam?
pattern? Huh?
Cam.
That's 2 cam shafts and 1 crank shaft on a 5-4-3 valve like Kayla's putting timing chains in right now. She's gonna have that thing fired up and running by next Thursday. Ain't that right, Kayla? This is a missing tooth. How many of these are there between the 2 missing teeth?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Don't have to count them. You shouldn't have to count them. There's 35 of them. That's a 36 minus 1 trigger wheel with 10 degrees in between each spike. Right? There you go. Now, these right here, these 2 cam shafts, they're supposed to line up. Have you ever seen those little cam phasers that got these funky little things sticking off of them? You know what I'm talking about? They got 3 sticking up and 1 sticking down. You've seen that, haven't you, Kayla? The little thing. That's what's making these. They're sweeping past that little cam sensor. Now this one here was one on an expedition that we did. I got another PowerPoint presentation I got called Phasers on Stun. You know, where we had to put cam phasers on one, kind of like y'all are doing. Y'all, you're not the first one that's ever had to do one of those here. You see what I'm saying?
Speaking
We
of,
have had other people do it.
Mr. Richards,
Yeah.
that little truck that we got over there, F-350,
Yeah.
motor,
Yeah.
he wants to ask me to see if we can bring it here.
Who? What? Who? What?
Up there with Jim, he wants to bring it up here because we ain't got a lift over there to take the body off.
No, I don't think so. Here we go. All right, there we go. Question 7. What 2 things were measured to gather this information?
I'm being
We
real.
hooked up to the
and
battery. We hooked up to the battery, and we put an amp clamp around the positive terminal. That's all we did. And then we went. And whenever it had enough puffs, this is the raw data. See this? And it doesn't pull as many amps if there's not any compression in that cylinder. So if it doesn't pull as many amps, if it knows where cylinder number 1 is, now you do have to hook up to cylinder number 1 so it'll know where cylinder number 1 is. It basically, it's an 8-cylinder, you got to tell how many cylinders you got. It's going to tell you which cylinders don't have any compression. So instantly, you hook up, okay, I got this one, no compression. You know that instantly, Because you got a scope. Because you're a smart cookie and you're not a buffoon, okay? It's bad to be a buffoon. What's a waste spark system? Somebody tell me.
Well, it's pretty much has 3 coils for a 6-cylinder. The primary coil or whatever, the waste spark doesn't fire.
The waste spark fires in the exhaust stroke.
Yes.
The working spark fires in the compression stroke. That's what a waste spark, and that's, you won't have a waste spark system unless you got, coil packs, which is like 2 coils for, each pair of companion cylinders has its own coil. What's the difference between a closed loop fuel control and open loop fuel control? One sentence.
Closed loop is, it means it's requiring feedback, open loop doesn't.
That's kind of right, but you're basically, what I like to say is, it's ignoring the oxygen sensor in open loop, and it's paying attention to the oxygen sensor in closed loop. All right, one open loop mode is wide open throttle, another open loop mode is cold engine. You got that? Anytime you got a closed loop, it means it's using feedback to determine what it's going to do with the fuel, right? Or whatever it's operating with. An air conditioner thermostat's a closed loop system. This wristwatch on my arm is an open loop system. It doesn't know if it's right or wrong, right? All right, so that's the difference on that. Here we go. And let me hit that again. What's this?
That is
Lubrication.
that's your fuel system.
Huh?
Fuel system.
Y'all know better than that. Come on.
Is that it right there?
Bingo! Listen to the man back
It's
there.
still a fuel system. It's the same
Evap
thing.
system. Evaporative
Okay.
system.
I
What
see
do we have?
why.
We got a canister. We got a canister, what's that? Canister vent, right? We got canister purge. We
I
got
made
the
about
gas tank.
60 on that.
There's a pressure sensor on there.
Okay.
Second-rate amateur. Now let's talk about this other test right here. Let's talk about the other test. I'm gonna turn that off. All right, now, what sensor is suspect if on a no start you don't have spark or fuel injection?
Cam.
Crank, not cam. Crank sensor. What are the 3 harmful exhaust gases?
You told me crank sensor. Oh, okay, never mind.
I did say crank sensor.
Carbon monoxide.
Yeah. If I'm checking for spark and I don't have spark, I'm gonna listen for fuel injector pulse. If I don't hear fuel injector pulse, I'm going after the crank sensor.
You told me cam.
I did not even tell you cam.
You even did a worksheet on it. And
You are making that up as
You
you
would
are.
plug the
Carbon
cam
monoxide.
sensor on one of them
From
fours.
one redhead to another. All right. There are 3 harmful exhaust gases. What are they?
Carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide, NOx, and hydrocarbons.
There you go. I've used to people that have been indoctrinated by the public school system saying carbon dioxide. It's carbon monoxide.
I started, so mine.
Carbon monoxide, not carbon dioxide. What are the 3, you're driving a Coca-Cola equipped vehicle that won't go over 40 miles an hour and shows no diagnostic trouble codes. What should you connect for your first test? I'm suspecting a catalytic converter stopped up. I'm gonna hook up a vacuum gauge and I'm gonna see, sitting here unloaded, if this thing actually drops vacuum and holds vacuum down when I'm giving it that's the first thing I'm gonna hook up. It's easy to do most of the time. You're driving up a slight incline at 48 miles an hour and you got this, toot, 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 toot. What is that?
Misfire.
Misfire, ignition misfire under load, surge, power, a surge, which is power delivery changing without throttle move. You ever felt a surge on a car, you're driving along and it's doing this? Okay, so it's felt at road speed, there's no diagnostic trouble codes, you disconnect the EGR valve, doesn't change anything. The customer says it started right after a transmission service. What's going on?
Reset transmission. gear.
Wrong fluid. Wrong fluid. What do these spark plug deposits mean? What do these spark plug deposits
Valve
mean?
stem seal.
Valve stem seals. Good man, Charles. All right. Most spark plug threads are what?
12 millimeter with
14 millimeter.
Oh,
With 1 1/4 thread pitch.
I've got
You need to
1 1/4.
obtain a tap to repair the O2 sensor threads in a manifold. What size tap do you
18
need to
millimeter.
get?
18.
18 millimeter. You find you need to tap the spark plug threads out on the one. What do you got to do first?
You gotta put it on the intake on that 1 cylinder and blow air through it.
Got to make sure air is blowing out that hole when you tap it so the stuff will come out. Vehicle comes in after a long drive with a skip. You decide to do a compression test. The gauge won't come out because you let it cool off. You're going to start it up and get it hot again, screw it right back out of there.
How you gonna spark plug in there now?
Well, you got all the other plugs in there. You fired it up and then you get it hot and then you screw your gauge out. Duh.
You can put a torch on there, works too.
A torch? Really? On an aluminum head? Oh, man.
I'm not talking about
You're killing me,
blasting
man. All right. There you go. In
14.
9 seconds, the video will be over. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yee yee.